Let me tell you what my deep research and basically vision is.
I hope there's Bigfoot. I don't think there is.
I'm not telling you nothing.
The aliens won't let it happen.
Happening now, breaking.
Bernie Sanders is angry.
Bears beats Battlestar Galactica.
What are the tips? Give me some tips on how to work with Wes Anderson.
Be ready to speak very fast and very clearly, because that's definitely one key thing.
I will only tell the truth. I will only
Until you and 6 kids you barely know in wet bathing suits have surrounded 9 chimpanzees outside of a Wendy's. You probably really don't know yourself, okay?
Yep. And we back.
Hello and welcome. You're listening to your new favorite podcast and the best in political, sports, and paranormal news coverage. I'm your host, Wes Anderson, and this is In the Shed. This is episode 18, so whether you're back for more or finding us for the first time this week, hey, thanks for tuning in. It's midday, Monday, July 5th on a holiday weekend, and I am in a shed in the backyard of my home in Alabama, all so I can hang out with you tools and talk about the latest headlines, stories, and rumors in the world of politics, sports, and the paranormal. Just like the songs say, we're back. Back in the shed again. How was your July 4th, my tools? I hope you had a good weekend, got to spend some time with your loved ones, eat some good food, and celebrate the freedom that we have in this country. Have had a few things happen since the last time that we have hung out together, with the most important being that my wife and I have celebrated our 8th wedding anniversary. That's right, my babies. We almost a decade in. There is another person on this planet, for whatever reason, has decided to remain married to this praying mantis with a beard. But I am glad that she has decided to stick by my side. My wife is the coolest person that I know. Like, my wife is so dope. Like, not only is she beautiful, which she is, total smoke show, just saying, outkick my coverage, what's up? But she's smart. She laughs at my dumb jokes, which I appreciate. She is the best mother that I know. And to top it all off, she has an absolute heart of gold, more compassion in her than in anyone else that I have ever come across, other than possibly Mother Teresa, but I ain't really know her on a personal level, so I can't really speak to that. My wife is awesome, and we've been together for 10 years now. We've been married for 8 years. During that time, we have experienced so much of life. We have lost jobs and loved ones. We have celebrated college graduations. There's been times where we didn't know where our next meal was going to come from. I'm talking 5 cities, 2 houses, several vehicles, 2 kids now, and she's been by my side through it all, has been my rock. And I just want to start this week's episode off by saying happy anniversary to you, sweetheart. I love you with all of my heart. My big, giant, oversized, medically enlarged heart. But, you know, it was at one time, it was a thing, but that was taken care of, but I love you though. Now I wanted to say too, since I have now reached 8 years of marriage, which I am by no means an expert on marriage. I'm like everyone else. I struggle to figure it out day to day and hope that I get more right today than I did yesterday. But the truth is marriage is a very difficult thing. It's not easy, and I have learned a few things. I'm not an expert, but I have learned a few things. So I thought, since I was talking about my wife and bragging on her and talking about our wedding anniversary, that I would just share with you, my tools, my babies, 5 keys to marriage that I have learned, things that I believe if you apply to your marriage, it will help you immensely. I actually had the joy of getting to officiate a wedding at one point, 3 years ago. And it was my brother-in-law and sister-in-law's wedding, which was extra special. And these are the 5 things that I shared with them as they were starting their marriage, and 5 things that I have sort of learned through mine as well. So I'm going to share it with you for free, my babies. You get all the goods for free on In the Shed with Wes. We just going to break it down for you. you want your marriage to improve, then take this piece of advice and see if you can live it out. Here's what we got. Number one is that love is not a feeling, but a choice. Love is not a feeling, but a choice. We use language like, I fell in love with so-and-so. And that kind of implies that it's something that came out of nowhere, that was unexpected, that you didn't have control over. And, maybe it is that way at first. Maybe it is that way. But real love that lasts the hard times, and love that lasts a lifetime, and love that makes a marriage work requires a deeper kind of love. A love that isn't just about the way that you feel, because the truth is, as a married couple, it's going to be plenty of times that you just not feeling the other person. You know what I'm saying? You just want them in the other room, and you want to be by yourself, or you got to get out of the house for a little while. But I feel like true love is a choice. It's choosing the other person every day, no matter what, even when you don't feel it, even when you're not communicating well, even when you're going through a rough time, even when you're not on the same page, just continuing to choose that person every day as your spouse. You are the person I'm committed to. You're the only person that will receive my affection. You are the person that I will protect and care for, that I will share my innermost feelings with. All that is yours and yours alone. I'm going to choose you every day, no matter what. To me, that's what true love is. It's that commitment and that choice of choosing to love that person every day, choosing to be committed to that person. So love is not a feeling, but it's a choice. The second piece of advice I have for you, my tools, you hear this cliche a lot when you're getting ready to get married. I know I heard it several times when we were engaged. They say, don't go to bed angry. Hey, in 8 years, I cannot count the amount of times that one of us or both of us have gone to bed angry. The truth is, you are both human, and you're going to go to bed angry sometimes. Sometimes you're going to be upset with the other person. They're going to get on your nerves. But I have learned the importance of going to bed together. Not letting that anger be something that separates you physically or emotionally from the other person. So even when you are angry, rather than taking your stuff and going out to the couch or kicking the other person out of the bed or sleeping in different rooms and distancing yourself from them, having the ability to say, you know what, I'm not happy with you right now, but I'm still committed to you. I'm not happy with you, but I'm going to be over here because this is our room, this is our bed, and this is what we do. I don't know. For me, I think that it makes a difference to sleep in the same bed, to sleep in the same room, even if you're not feeling each other. So the truth is, you probably will at some point go to bed angry, but you can still choose to go to bed together. And I think that matters. The third piece of advice I have for you, marriage advice, is even after your marriage, continue dating. Not other people. I'm not saying date other people. Hey, no. I'm saying continue to date your spouse. Continue to make time to go do things that are fun, to try new experiences together, to continue to get to know them, to continue to be inquisitive, to ask questions, to find out their preferences and their likes, because those things change over time. Don't ever assume just because you're married that you know the person and that you're with them. One way to keep it fresh is to continue to date them. Continue to go do special things together. My neighbor drives a monster truck, I guess. He just started it up. Continue to have a date night. Protect that night as often as you're able to anyway. Sometimes different seasons in life make that difficult. But continue to do fun things together. Continue to spend time together regularly. Continue to date one another even after you're married. It's important. Number 4 piece of advice when it comes to marriage and making a marriage work. Let your grace be new for your spouse every day. A huge and undervalued and under-talked about part of making a marriage work is just bearing with the other person. Just bearing with them, just hanging in there when times are hard, when they're not their best self, when they're not showing up in the way that you need them to, just bearing with one another. And it becomes so easy to do the comparison thing. It becomes so easy for things to be a contest about which one of you is doing things better. It's so easy to hold a grudge. It's so easy to have unresolved issues and a lack of forgiveness. And when those things take root in a marriage, you can begin to resent your spouse. And if you ever get to the point in your marriage where you start having resentment build up against your spouse, it's a hard thing to overcome. And in my estimation, in my little bit of experience, the way to overcome that is just to make the active choice every day when you get out of bed and your feet hit the floor, to let the grace that you have with your spouse start over. to wipe the slate clean, not to hold those grudges, not to keep a running tally of all their mistakes and their missteps, but to let them start over. It's important to let your spouse come back from their worst moments, to let your spouse come back from the comment that they made that hurt your feelings, from the thing that they did yesterday that wasn't right. Let them come back from it. Give them new grace in the morning. And if you both decide to do that and you make that active choice, it's gonna build a wall that protects you from resentment entering into your marriage, and that's a key thing. And the last piece of marriage advice I have for you on this episode 18 of In the Shed with Wes Anderson is continue to grow as individuals. Continue to grow as individuals. I have a lot of friends my age, I'm only 31. I have a lot of friends that have already been married and divorced. And one of the key things that I have seen in those relationships and that they have told me is that they grew apart. And I think what happens is two people get married and they stop growing as individuals. They grow together as a couple, but they stop growing as individuals, and one or both parties get restless. One or both parties feel like they're missing out on something. One or both parties feel unsupported by the other, feel like that they have compromised their dreams and their ability to accomplish certain things that they've always wanted out of life. A healthy marriage is a beautiful thing. Becoming one with your spouse is a beautiful thing. But if you're not healthy, if you're not satisfied in your own self, if you don't love your own self, or you're not proud of who you are and what you've got going on, how can your marriage be healthy? So I think when couples get married, it's important to grow together, absolutely. But one aspect of that we leave out often is continuing to grow as individuals. Continue to chase your dreams. Continue to build your career. Continue to work on yourself. Continue to seek the healing that you need and deal with the baggage that you have, that you brought into the marriage. Continue to do all the things so that you can be the best version of yourself, so that you can be the best husband, so that you can be the best wife, the best father, the best mother, so that you're fulfilled, so that you're not looking to your spouse for fulfillment, but so that you've actually got fulfillment on your own. The thing that you can share with your spouse is the overflow from that fulfillment and the joy that comes from that fulfillment and the peace that comes from that fulfillment. If you're looking to your spouse for fulfillment all the time, it's only a matter of time before you're going to be disappointed. But if you continue to work on yourself and grow as an individual, and both of you are doing that, then you can share that fulfillment that you have separately together as a couple. And I think that's how you grow in a marriage. So that's it, my tools. Not trying to Dr. Phil you on this episode, but hey, I'm just super excited about hitting 8 years of marriage with my bride. Looking forward to about 62 more is my goal. I'm going to get to 70, and then all bets are off after that. But don't know how I ever tricked my wife into marrying me. So glad that she did. And I got to say, one thing she did lately that I thought was super, super dope. My wife works with family reunification. All right. So families, parents that have either lost custody of their children or who are in danger of losing custody of their children, she steps into the situation, comes alongside that parent, and tries to help provide them all of the resources and the skills and the things that they need in order to be better parents, in order to kind of get the state out of the picture and let the children and the family unit stay together. It's a beautiful thing. And just recently, she did a book drive. She was in a couple homes, and the children just didn't have resources to have books to be read to them. And so she did an online book drive and ended up being able to provide books and reading material to several families in need. And she just does stuff like that all the time, like without being asked, without it being a part of her regular job. She goes above and beyond, does things that other people wouldn't think to do. And it's because it's who she is. It's who she is. And it's one of the things that I love about her most. So, Charcy, happy anniversary, sweetheart. As soon as our schedules slow down, I would love to take my own marriage advice and take you out on a date. All right, that's enough mushy-gushy for this week. I hope you've hung in there with me, and I hope you enjoyed that segment. Let's get to some comments and corrections from our last episode. Keystone 151, Hanobia 130, Townsend 45. If any of you have connections in South Dakota, Oklahoma, or Tennessee, or to the leadership of any of those towns, please reach out to us. You can email the show at intheshedwithwes@gmail.com. or reach out to the city on our behalf. Get us an official invite and we'll come do the show live from one of those Bigfoot festivals. Make it happen, my tools. Make it happen. On last week's show, we publicly doubted a lobster diver's story about getting swallowed by a whale off the coast of Massachusetts. We've continued to keep tabs on the story, but so far we've seen no reason to believe that it isn't true. Last week we talked about NBA head coaching vacancies, and since then 4 such vacancies have been filled, with the Indiana Pacers hiring Rick Carlisle, the Mavericks hiring Jason Kidd, the Trailblazers tapping Chauncey Billups, and the Boston Celtics hiring Ime Udoka. And on last week's show, we talked about a so-called zombie woman in Seattle. There has been little to no update offered from authorities in Seattle about what was actually happening in that video or what help the woman may have been offered. We're up to 420 followers on Twitter now. You can follow the show there too at InTheShed4. That's the @sign, and then InTheShed4. We're over 100 downloads in India, reaching 115 and counting to be exact. We're also growing in France, Australia, Canada, and the UK, with France now making up 3% of our total listening audience. Thank you, France. Keep sharing our show with your family and friends, and let's continue to grow this thing together. All right, that's all the comments and corrections for this week. Let's get to some listener emails. Our first email comes from Jason from Tampa, Florida. Jason writes, I don't believe the diver's story about being swallowed by a whale at all. Seems like he would have been more injured than he was. Yeah, I don't know, Jason. Perhaps it is a true story. I have not heard anyone besides us casting doubt on his story so far. I'd had that same thought as well. Like, wouldn't you be much more hurt if you were swallowed by a whale? But the diver seems to be okay, which we are happy about. We don't wish injury on anyone here on In the Shed. But we are waiting to see. We're going to just wait a little bit longer and see what comes from that story. It definitely was a wild story. Jessica from South Carolina writes, I can't believe Alabama just legalized yoga in schools. That story sounds like something out of The Onion. Yeah, that's my home state, Jessica. I'm in Alabama right now. Every week I'll be here. It does sound like something from The Onion, doesn't it? Up until just now, in the year of our Lord 2021, Alabama banned yoga in its schools, which is crazy. But it's the world that we live in, and at least if nothing else, it has been undone, although you still can't say namaste. So there's that. Montrell from Phoenix says, Wes, the Suns are definitely winning the title. No other team left can compete. Obviously, Montrell, you sent that when there was more than just one team that they face. And we'll talk about that in sports, but the Phoenix Suns will take on the Milwaukee Bucks. And I got to say, I think that you're right. I think that the Suns will win the NBA title, which who would have thought coming into this season that the Phoenix Suns would have a chance to be NBA champions. It's crazy. And finally, Ted from Maryland writes, Wes, I can relate to your story about the pastor knowing your thoughts. While I don't consider myself a Christian, I too have the gift. I've had the ability to connect with people on a spiritual and emotional level since I was a child. It's not something I sought or wanted, but an ability I intrinsically have, and it often allows me to literally read the minds of those I'm with. Okay. I guess I will take your word for it, Ted. Hold on, here we go. We're going to test this, Ted. Ted from Maryland, can you hear me? What am I thinking about? Right now, I'll even give you a hint. It's a certain type of breakfast sandwich. Do you hear it, Ted? Can you read my thoughts? Drop us a line at intheshedwithwes@gmail.com and let me know what breakfast sandwich I'm thinking about right now. And on next week's show, we will get to the bottom of whether or not you actually can read minds. Hey, what if Ted gets it right, though? Like, that'd be super dope. Like, if Ted, emails the show and tells me exactly what it was. That'd be wild. What other shows are doing breakfast sandwich mind-reading games live on the air? That's why you come to In the Shed with Wes. Nobody does it like we do. Nobody. That's all the listener emails for this week. If you have any thoughts that you'd like to share, you can email the show at intheshedwithwes@gmail.com. Again, that's intheshedwithwes@gmail.com. I might even read it on air. All right, let's switch to this. Let's get to the news in the world of politics. And let's hit the headlines. Psaki downplays gas price spike after holiday barbecue tweet, writes Fox News. From the American Conservative, unlike the right, leftists train and learn from their mistakes. U.S. jobs growth pick up speed amid reopening, according to the BBC. Polarization has led to inaction by Congress, says NBC News. And finally, robots were supposed to take our jobs. Instead, they're making them worse. And that is according to Vox. Our first story in the world of politics this week, Indian medical workers scale mountains to bring vaccines to remote corners. As India rushes to vaccinate its people against the coronavirus, medical workers often have to trek to perilous heights and across treacherous terrain to reach those in remote areas. In the northern region of Liderwat, more than 100 kilometers from the capital of India-administered Kashmir, medical teams have had to trek more than 6 hours on foot and ponies to reach nomadic and shepherd tribes in the mountains. On a recent morning, Reuters reporters tagged along with a team of over a dozen health workers carrying medical kits and equipment, including oxygen cylinders, atop ponies and on foot to Liderwat. In a meadow surrounded by mountain peaks, the workers set up the vaccination site, donning blue protective suits as people gathered. Part of the challenge was also to convince people to get the vaccine. The nomadic tribes are not entirely educated or aware about the vaccination, the locally based medical official Nasir Khan told Reuters. We had to talk to them, motivate them to convince and mobilize them, he said. It's a faith-building process. There was hesitancy in the beginning. Hey, maybe we should get this medical team to come to my neck of the woods then, because there's a lot of people down here that don't want to get the vaccine, you know. Maybe they could set up some tents in the Walmart parking lot and be like, hey, let me talk to you about this vaccine. Let's build your faith in the vaccine so that we can all get well together. Despite being among the world's major producers of coronavirus vaccines, India faces a mammoth task in inoculating its 1.3 billion people, partly due to the logistical challenges of reaching remote areas and skepticism and lack of knowledge about the process. Prime Minister Narendra Modi's government has said that it aims to vaccinate all eligible and willing Indians by the end of this year, but so far only 240 million of the country's 950 million adults have had at least one shot, according to federal health data. The country is battling a ferocious second wave of the coronavirus that has battered its health system, and scientists have warned that vaccinations are critical to protect against a third wave of the virus expected later this year. Oh Lord, put it in reverse, Terry. A third wave? No, we don't need no more waves. Help us, Jesus. Save us, Tom Cruise. India has recorded some 29.3 million COVID-19 infections, the second highest number after the United States, as well as 363,079 deaths. So, India has 1.3 billion people, and they have less COVID-19 infections than we do in the United States. I don't know whether to offer India a cookie or to tell America to go get the switch. But hey, that's kind of alarming, isn't it? A little bit embarrassing, but kind of alarming. Health systems have fallen short of reaching many in the rural interiors and remote corners, some of which have no motorable roads. Until today, not a single doctor has come to this area, but today a team has come to administer coronavirus vaccines to us, said Mohammed Ashraf, one of the 200 people who got their first dose of the vaccine on Thursday at Liderwat. We are happy and thankful. So I thought that was a pretty cool story to share. As most of you who have been listening to our show for a while are aware, India has a special place in the heart of our show. They are our second largest listener base. We've gotten emails from several of our listeners in India, and they're going through a hard time and have been for a while with the second wave of COVID. And just to read about the dedication of these doctors is pretty cool. Like, sometimes it's easy to get discouraged with the state of humanity, where we think like no one is willing to go the extra mile for each other anymore. No one is willing to put others before themselves and sacrifice their own time and their energy and their effort on behalf of bettering the community or of taking care of others. And this is a story of the exact opposite. This is a story that affirms that, yes, there are people like that still in our world, and that there is good left in our world. And it gives us a reason to hope. First of all, these doctors are scaling mountains and riding ponies. The ponies part sounds delightful, I'm not going to lie, but the mountains do not. I have been on remote mountains in buses and vehicles, and I was scared enough just trying to look over the edge when we rounded corners. To be on foot or a pony, not sure about that. Not sure about that at all. And they're doing it for no other reason than to set up a tent and hope to convince other people that it is important to get the vaccine. People that don't have the information or understanding and have not had access to the vaccine previously. And so they're setting up shop and just saying, let us tell you about this. Let us tell you why this is important. Come talk to us. They do all of that just for the opportunity to talk to these people about possibly getting the vaccine. Talk about faith. Talk about working on behalf of humanity. Like, that's pretty dope. Like, these doctors over here in India that are doing whatever they can just to get to the remote regions of their country. Like, that's pretty cool. And so I thought that was worth highlighting on this show and just saying, way to go, India. Way to go, doctors of India. And I'm just hoping that things turn around quickly for you as a nation. Our next story, repeat problem. Fingers point at Kamala Harris as history of staff unrest continues. A toxic work environment that is alleged to be inside the office of Vice President Kamala Harris stems from the top, with complicating power centers plaguing her road to the White House. This is a bottom line business, and the bottom line is the Vice President has challenges with her staff wherever she is, one senior Democratic operative told the Washington Examiner. President Joe Biden handed Harris a politically fraught portfolio of issues which could cause some strife within any official staff, but the complaints are nothing new. This source called the office discord a repeat problem for Harris, adding that the troubles are not surprising. The Harris Inner Circle, and I'll use that plural because they've been different inner circles in California, in her Senate office, on her presidential campaign, and now in her vice presidential campaign in office, they've always been rife with a lot of dissension, a lot of infighting, the person said. It's probably a little unfair to say that it's just her, but she is the common denominator in all of these situations. Being the junior senator from California, that's different than being vice president, the person added. I don't think there have been any major dust-ups that you can't recover from, but I do think that this is endemic of a pretty uneven start to her time in this role. One report published Wednesday detailed a climate of fear inside the office of the vice president, including a tense and at times dour office atmosphere. Ideas are ignored or met with harsh dismissals, and decisions are dragged out, the article read, with aides and associates pointing the finger at Tina Flournoy, a longtime Democratic Party operative and Harris's chief of staff. Two top advanced staffers recently announced their departures, according to another report, along with Harris's head of digital strategy, Rajan Kaur. Simone Sanders, the senior advisor and chief spokesperson for Harris, rebuked the claim, saying in the first media report, "We are not making rainbows and bunnies all day. What I hear is that people have hard jobs, and I'm like, welcome to the club." Yo. So, like a couple weeks ago, Vice President Harris was in an interview. I can't remember if it was with Chris Wallace on the Sunday show on Fox, I think. And he asked her why, if she's in charge of the border crisis, like why haven't you actually gone to the border? And her answer was as poor an answer as one could give. She rattled off some dismissive response like, well, I haven't been to Europe either, and then kind of cackled and laughed. And that's what Simone Sanders is doing in response to this article. We're not making rainbows and bunnies all day. What I hear is that people have hard jobs, and I'm like, welcome to the club. Yeah, people have hard jobs, but we haven't seen this type of reputation follow every vice presidential staff. It's not necessarily a normal thing, so hey. Sanders continued, "We've created a culture where people, if there is anything anyone would like to raise, there are avenues for them to do so. Whoever has something that they would like to raise, they should raise it directly," she said. Reports say that Flournoy walled off Harris from longtime friends, donors, and associates, a move that the Democratic operative defended. It does feel like the intentions of Tina Flournoy are good, which are to kind of clean up some of the mess and keep the hanger-ons away, and to establish some order and a standard which is understandable, the source said. The source added, "The consistent thread with all of this infighting and dissension with all of the different power centers of Kamala Harris is Vice President Harris. In Guatemala last month, the former California senator was asked whether she would visit the southern border. Oh, here we go. Is this what I'm talking about right here? She was asked if she would visit the southern border, a persistent question since Biden tasked her with stemming the migrant flow. The vice president threw cold water on the idea during a press briefing, saying that she would focus on the root causes of migration from the region as opposed to grand gestures, and repeating that in an interview with NBC. Yeah, but she ended up going to the border, didn't she? Because the way she handled that question turned nothing into something. I mean, she kind of right. Like, you do need to address the root causes of an issue. And if she had said, I'm planning to go to the border on this date, but I'm starting with visiting these countries because these are where the people are coming from, and I want to figure out what the root issue is. But of course, I'm going to go to the border. That's very important. You know, things might have been different, but to just kind of dismiss it and laugh it off, that never goes well. That communicates something that you don't want to communicate, shawty. Asked why she had yet to visit the U.S. border states, Harris appeared frustrated by the question that has dogged her for months. And I haven't been to Europe, she said. I don't understand the point that you're making. I'm not discounting the importance of the border. But see, she did understand the point that was trying to be made, and it was a valid point. She just is not good in those situations. Vice President Harris, there's a lot of things that she's good at. Kind of answering for herself or her record or the record of her administration that she's involved in is not one of those things. Yeah, you can look at when she's running for president, why she flamed out so quickly in trying to get the Democratic nomination was because of answers and dismissive responses like this, kind of resorting to the awkward laugh rather than getting into the substance of the issue itself. Everybody knows that's a nervous laugh. We've all been in 8th grade. Like, we know that. The remarks drew blowback from political opponents and allies and from the press for seeming to dismiss concerns about Republicans and some Democrats see as an accelerating crisis. Ain't that what I just said, though? Dismissive. If you're a politician, you're supposed to be a public servant. You can't come across as dismissive to the public, to their concerns, even if it's not your constituents, even if it's not the folks that voted for you. I'm about to sneeze. Shoot, that was a big one. Neighbors like, oh man, they setting off some more fireworks over there. We'll cut that out, the podcast, though. I usually don't offer many edits, but I gotta get rid of that. I'm choking. Woo. Lousy, man. Harris visited the border last week with a trip to El Paso, Texas, quieting some of the noise. Hopefully this is a wake-up call, a Democratic strategist who used to work for Harris told the Washington Examiner, singling out what he identified as self-inflicted wounds. She's taking on incredibly complex issues and is under the microscope like never before in her career. So this sort of treatment comes with the territory, this person said. But she really can't afford any self-inflicted wounds as they will distract from the important work that she has in front of her. Allies said that Harris, who made history with her election as Biden's vice president, confronts challenges not shared by others who have held the role. There's a challenge that comes along with being the first woman in that position and the first woman of color in that position, the Democratic operative said. That doesn't mean that she and her team are above critique. They're not. But I think it would be naive to not consider that in observing kind of an uneven rollout of her time as vice president. Reports of friction with donors and outside political forces are unlikely to plague her down the line, the other Democrat interviewed said. Is it going to matter in 3 years if she's the nominee for president, or in 7 years if she's the nominee for president? Like, are they not going to give her money? No, they're going to. They'll be there, the person said. So, Democrats are painting this as a hit piece and a non-story, saying that it is not news, that it is an attempt from the right to cast aspersions on Vice President Harris's ability to hold office and to govern, so that if she is the nominee in 4 years, she has a more difficult road in getting elected. Nah. This is a story, and I don't think that it's just made up. I don't think it's just a simple hit piece for the sake of being a hit piece. Because these are the types of things that have been said about Kamala Harris and her circle her entire career in politics. When she was a politician in California, when she was the top cop, when she was running for the Democratic nomination of president, in each of those situations and circumstances, the word around her camp and the news that came from her camp is one of uneven and inconsistent performance of a leadership style that allowed for hostility between folks that are supposed to be on the same team, a lack of a cohesive vision and plan, and her inability to handle these situations and to manage the team that she's put around her, or to choose a good team to put around her, is in large part, along with the fact that she just does not come across all the time as down to earth and believable, and to a lot of people, unfortunately, even likable. Those are the reasons that she flamed out so quickly when she was trying to become the presidential nominee for the Democratic Party. And if the Democrats want to pretend that there is nothing to this and that there is smoke but there's no fire, they can do that at their own peril. But they've taken that road before, and it got Donald Trump elected president, because Hillary Clinton, simply put, was just not a good candidate to run. And y'all hear them fireworks? Hey, it's Alabama. These gonna be going on for the next 7 days, shawty. I promise that's fireworks, not gunshots. We keep it safe around here. I run these streets. Yeah, I know that Hillary Clinton has a long resume when it comes to politics. I know that a lot of people have pointed to her resume and said that she was one of the most qualified people to ever run for president. I'm not talking about qualifications. I'm talking about the simple, common sense fact and truth of, can this person win? And there were a whole lot of us that knew when Hillary Clinton was running that if she was the nominee, and if the Clinton machine and donors got behind her and she was the nominee for the Democrats, that there was a very good chance a Republican would step into the White House. And that's not even a commentary on her ability. That's simply saying that there are that many people that simply do not like Hillary Clinton. They did not want Hillary Clinton, even in her own party. And for the Democrats to just look the other way and hope for the best, it didn't work out so well for them. And for them to take a story like this and these things to continue to follow Kamala Harris in her office around from job to job to job, for them to just kind of ignore it and say that this is just Republican talking points, I wouldn't be so fast to do that, because you're heading down the wrong road. Now, to be fair, I don't think that everything in that article is necessarily Vice President Harris's fault, even if true. And I am not a fan of sources being quoted but not named. I've never been a fan of that. And if we're being honest, President Biden has put his vice president in a very difficult position, because the only assignments that he's given her are the most difficult assignments that there are. Here, Kamala Harris, figure out the border. Good luck. Nobody's done it before. Here, Kamala Harris, solve the issue of race and inequality in voting in America. Good luck. Nobody's done it before. Those are hard issues to solve. And maybe I shouldn't say nobody has done it. People have made progress, but they're still hard. There's still problems. There's still complex issues. So Joe Biden has not put her in a position to succeed. And to make matters worse, apparently she has surrounded herself with a team that is less than stellar and that does not necessarily have her back or her best wishes at heart, that does not buy into her vision of what it looks like to be the vice president of the United States of America. So I know at this point Joe Biden is saying that he is going to run again for president for a second term in 4 years. I'm going to wait and see. And I think if they're being honest, a lot of the Democrats, they're going to wait and see too. The man's old. I don't think that's a secret. So if he doesn't run, the likely person that folks would look to would be the one who was just in the vice presidency. I said that like it was like vice president's seat, vice presidency. Vice presidency. Mario. But they'll look to Kamala Harris as the front runner. She'll be in the catbird seat, and if this kind of stuff continues and follows around her whole time as vice president, this whole 4-year term, then she might not be the one. She might not be in the best place to run for president. And the Democrats have a history of just saying, well, we can still win, and they just go for it. I wouldn't be so fast to do that. Kamala Harris, you need to get this stuff worked out. Or Democrats, you need to be ready to look to somebody else. Maybe it's Grandpa Joe again. I don't know. Maybe it's somebody else. But we're going to keep an eye on this. Like I said, I don't believe it to be nothing more than right-wing talking points. It might not be the most fair story ever, but I think that there is a history there and some truth to it as well. Our next story, Surfside resident Ivanka Trump quietly helped out after tower collapse, reports say. Ivanka Trump is helping, and we don't just mean helping herself either. It don't say that. I just kind of ad-libbed that part. It just says Ivanka Trump is helping, but I thought I would throw something else in there to be funny. So I'm going to get like 15 emails this week saying that wasn't funny and you're a Trump hater. I'm not. I don't hate nobody. We don't do hate. The part-time Surfside resident donated money after the partial collapse of the Champlain Tower South on Thursday, NBC6 reports. An insider told the station the former first daughter helped financially with an effort to get food to first responders and volunteers. The New York native, her husband Jared Kushner, and their 3 kids have been renting a unit at Art Surfside since after the presidential election. Their address at the high-end beachfront property is 89th Street and Collins Avenue. The Champlain disaster site is 2 blocks away at 87th Street. Trump, 39, why they gotta throw her age in there like that? Like, you don't do that to a lady. Come on. You don't ask a lady's age. Like, your mama ain't raised you right or something. You ain't got no home training. Talking about Trump, 39, shoot. That's a good way to get knocked into next week or something. Trump, I'm leaving out the age. I'm a gentleman. Trump did not trumpet. Oh my gosh, they really. Trump did not trumpet, man. Whoever wrote this article needs some help. You need some help, brother or sister. I don't know, but I'm guessing brother because no sister would write like this. Trump did not trumpet any altruistic efforts on social media. Her last posts have been about getting the COVID vaccine at her local CVS. The Kushner family was reportedly out of town during Thursday's catastrophic collapse. As of Friday, 128 people are still unaccounted for, and 24 are reported dead. So obviously a horrific and horrible and terrible tragedy there in Surfside. And our thoughts and prayers and good vibes go out to the people and the families and the friends and the residents there. We invite you to join us here on In the Shed with Wes in praying and offering our good vibes and thoughts to those folks. If you are aware of any charities, any place that we can give, hit us up on Twitter @InTheShed4 or email us at intheshedwithwes@gmail.com. And we would love to promote any avenue in which we can kind of alleviate some of the suffering and some of the pain there. And good on Ivanka Trump. I wanted to highlight this story because I've told you before, I try to be fair on this show. Like I'm an independent. I'm too conservative for my liberal friends. I'm too liberal for my conservative friends. Like I don't really have a place when it comes to politics in America. Like I just don't. I don't fit. I'm like a circle trying to fit into a square peg. Like it just don't work, shawty. And the reason that I am that way and that I do not fit is because I am just a common sense person. I don't read too deeply into everything that I see in the news and every report and everything that someone says. I just want to know straight up what you're doing and why. I want freedom for everybody. I want people to enjoy life. I want America to be the country and live up to the country that we claim that we are and that we try to be. And I don't vibe with all of this just insane ultra partisanship. The my team versus your team. Like I don't do all of that. What's best for the people? How do we provide the most freedom for everybody? I can get on board with that. I got friends on both sides of the aisle. We should be compromised, and we should have actual public servants who want to compromise to make things better for the American people. And so we try to be fair. And so sometimes I'm going to highlight things that the Biden administration did in which they failed. I'm going to highlight their victories. I did the same thing for the Trump administration that last little bit when our show first kicked off. And I'll continue to do that. I don't care if you're a Republican, a Democrat, or an independent. I'm going to call it like I see it. I'm going to keep it 100 with you. And this is objectively a good thing that Ivanka Trump did. Good for her, good for Jared Kushner and their family. to provide some food and take care, use their resources that they have to help take care of those who were searching for survivors, who were doing the hard work and the heavy lifting, who are right there in the thick of this disaster. And I'll tell you what I don't appreciate. Whenever somebody that's on the other side of the aisle from you does something that is good, and you're so partisan that you can't even give them credit for it, that you can't even acknowledge that it was a good thing that was done. That's crazy. Like, you need to take a few steps back. Like, that's crazier than a hit and holler dog. The same thing happened back when Texas was experiencing all these issues. We covered it on the show when Ted Cruz went on his little trip to Cancun, and AOC was down there in Texas serving in the homeless shelter, was donating some money to charities, was providing drinking water for people. And a lot of y'all Republicans and a lot of my conservative friends were saying, oh, she's just doing this to make Ted Cruz look bad, and this is all for optics, and she doesn't really care about people, and yada. Hey, do you know her personally? Have you ever met her? Have you had a conversation with her before? Do you know anything about her other than that you are supposed to dislike her because she is on the other team? She did something that was objectively good. She provided drinking water. She served food to hungry people. She gave of her time and her money. She used the platform that she had to draw attention to ways to help others. That is an objectively good thing. And the same thing is happening here. Here you have a situation where Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner very quietly, they didn't trumpet it like the article said. Very quietly, they just gave money to try and help. This tragedy was a mere 2 blocks from the condo that they rent. They wanted to help out. They donated some money. They bought some food. They provided for the first responders. It's an objectively good thing. And yet some of my friends on the left, because her name is Trump, because of who her daddy is, because of what team she's on, refuse to acknowledge that this is a good thing that she has done. Instead, they're talking about how, oh, she's just doing this because she doesn't want to be lumped in with her father. She's just doing this for some good PR because they've gotten a lot of bad PR lately. I've heard folks saying things like, why did she provide food for the first responders, but she didn't give money for the families of the victims or those who suffered most? Look, have you pulled out your wallet? Have you driven down there to throw some hamburgers on the grill for these folks who are hungry? We shouldn't be in a position to criticize the good deeds of others when we're sitting on our hands, right? When we're on the couch watching it on TV. What AOC did in Texas was objectively good. What Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner have done here is objectively good. I'm sick of the hyper-partisanship. This was a tragedy. This was a terrible tragedy. 128 people, brothers, sisters, mothers, daughters, grandchildren, grandparents. 128 people unaccounted for. The Israeli search team that was brought in flying out today. The weather's about to get bad with Tropical Storm Elsa. They said that they think there's close to a 0% chance that any additional survivors will be located. And there's 128 people who are unaccounted for. So if Jared Kushner and Ivanka Trump, despite what their politics are, despite what her father and his father-in-law has said or done or what you think of him, if they want to provide meals for those who've been spending 12 hours a day, 14, 16 hours a day going through this rubble trying to find survivors, I got nothing to say but good job. I got nothing to say but my hat's off to you. I got nothing to say except for, does anyone know of how I can help, what I can do, where I can contribute my money? I don't have as much as they do, but I'd like to give something. I can't get in the car, get on the plane, and go down there, but I can write a check. And we can write a check. I know it's about 60 of y'all listening to this podcast right now. And if anybody can find a charity that's helping out, this relieving some of the hardship placed on these families and the burden that they face, even those who've just lost their home and everything that they owned, those who've lost loved ones, if you can figure out a way for us to help, please let me know. I would love for us to do that because that's what it's all about. Ultimately, we are all on the same team. We are all Americans. We're all people who are made in God's image. And my prayers and my good vibes go out to you guys there in Surfside. And my hat's off to you, Ivanka Trump. Job well done. Our last story in the world of politics, Amanda, oh my gosh. Giant flying cockroach just went right over my head inside this shed, my people. Holy moly. I don't know. Maybe I won't edit that out either. I have a sneeze and a cockroach in this episode. That caught me off guard. I'm about to read this headline to you, and this giant cockroach just flew right over your boy's dome, about 2 inches from the top of my head. And now I don't know where he at. He ain't here with me somewhere. I don't know where he at. Have I mentioned that I record this show in a literal shed in my backyard? It's like 105 degrees right now, my people. I do it for you, my babies. It's all for you. We grow this thing together. I enjoy doing this show. But hey, I'm enjoying interacting with y'all. The emails I get, the follows on Twitter, all of it. I'm loving it. I'm loving discussing all of these stories. It's all for you, my babies. I put up with the heat, with the cockroaches. Yeah, we do it all. What other news show is dealing with flying cockroaches while they reporting the news to you? Ain't nobody I know of. Give me that Tony Award. I don't know what Tony for. Give me that Emmy. Give me that Emmy. Shine it on up. Bring it to the shed. Let's go. Let's go. Back to our last story. Our last story in the world of politics, a man arrested for riding in the backseat of his driverless Tesla got out of jail, bought a new one, and did it again. A San Francisco man who was arrested for riding in the backseat of his Tesla as it drove on the highway. Yes, I said a San Francisco man who was arrested for riding in the backseat of his Tesla as it drove on the highway, says he'll keep pulling the stunt after being released from jail, and he'll keep buying more cars as they get impounded. That's some gangster type attitude right there. I'm gonna keep on doing it too. After getting booked on 2 counts of reckless driving, Param Sharma arrived for a Wednesday interview with the Bay Area news station KTVU, riding in the backseat of a Tesla again. You're kidding me. After getting booked on 2 counts, I'm going to read it again. After getting booked on 2 counts of reckless driving, Param Sharma arrived for a Wednesday interview with the Bay Area news station KTVU, riding in the backseat of a Tesla again. That man came to his interview the same way he done got arrested for. He's like, hey, you can't stop me. This thing drive itself, and I'm going to ride in the back because I now got a chauffeur. I got somebody to drive me around. His name is Mr. Tesla. Thank you very much, Elon Musk. It wasn't the same car that the California Highway Patrol pulled him over in. The day after being released from jail on Tuesday, he told the channel that Sharma bought a new Tesla Model 3 because the other was impounded. Also, he said that he is very rich. Rule of thumb, usually when people have to tell you that they are very rich, in fact, they are not very rich. And I don't know Mr. Sharma, Mr. Param Sharma. Your name sounds like some type of pasta. I don't know you. Maybe you're a good dude. You seem a little confusing to me that you're going to get arrested for this activity and you're just going to continue the activity even on the way to a news station interview. Like, of all times to not do the activity that got you arrested, that would be the time to not do that activity. Like if you got arrested for selling drugs, then you probably shouldn't be in the newsroom slinging coke right before your interview, you know? If you got arrested for illegally producing moonshine, you probably shouldn't be at your interview saying, hey, taste this apple moonshine that I done made in my bathtub. But here he is, showing up to the interview right in the backseat of his Tesla talking about, I am a very rich man. The California Highway Patrol said Tuesday that it had arrested Sharma for reckless driving and disobeying a peace officer. Can he be arrested for reckless driving if he's not driving, though? Like, I'm just saying, I'm not on Mr. Sharma's side necessarily. Like, I might have to side with the popo on this one. But if you're not driving the car, is it really reckless? I agree. Hey, I agree. I agree. It is reckless. But is it really driving? Technically, the car is driving itself. You think he had this conversation with himself and that's why he got in the backseat? He was like, technically, I'm not actually driving. Yeah. The arrest came after videos circulated online of Sharma riding down the highway in the back seat, which is terrifying. He had been cited for the same offense in April, police said. My boy just keep riding in the back seat. You've heard of backseat drivers. My goodness, this man take it to a different level, don't he? Sharma told KTVU that he bought a Tesla with the full self-driving package, but seemed overly confident in the feature's abilities. The $10,000 advanced driver assistance system, a step up from the standard autopilot feature, enables a car to automatically change lanes, navigate highway on-ramps and exits, and recognize stop signs and traffic lights. But it does not make Tesla autonomous, and the company says that drivers need to pay full attention when using it. It's like a living room back here. I'm relaxing in luxury while Elon Musk chauffeurs me, he told KTVU. Take this man's license. Don't put me on the interstate with this man. Like, I'm thankful right now that he about 2,000 miles away from me, because that's terrifying. He's like, I'm in the living room in the backseat of my car reading my newspaper and having my coffee. Got my feet propped up, not paying attention because my car drives itself. Until it don't. Technology fail all the time. I ain't trusting my iPhone to drive me around. I sure as heck not gonna trust no Tesla. Even in its most advanced iteration, the full self-driving system has major flaws. You don't say. Tesla tells the software's beta testers to be vigilant, as the feature could do the wrong thing at the worst time. In tests, Consumer Reports said full self-driving performed inconsistently and sometimes disengaged without warning. Sounds like the Tesla should have a job in the Kamala Harris vice presidential staff office. Performing inconsistently and sometimes disengaged without warning is what they all about over there, according to reports. Still, Sharma said he has no plans to stop riding in the backseat of his car despite the clear dangers the stunt poses to pedestrians and other drivers. We know. This article has told us 6 times. Apparently, the whole interview that Mr. Sharma gave this television station was like, hey, Mr. Sharma, are you going to stop riding in the back seat? No, I'm not going to stop riding in the back seat. I am very rich. Well, Mr. Sharma, you have been in trouble for riding in the back seat. Don't you think you should stop riding in the back seat? No, I will not stop riding in the back seat. That was the whole interview right there. You could have summed it up in about 1,000 less words, shawty. I feel like by mid-2022, the backseat thing will be normal, and I think right now people are just taking it out of proportion, he said. Nah. We're out of order, Mr. Sharma. You are out of order, Mr. Sharma. This man said that it will be normal to ride in the backseat by 2022. That's next year. We not that far from 2022. I think you're wrong, Mr. Sharma. And I think if you keep riding in the back seat, somebody's going to get hurt, because I don't trust technology as much as you apparently do. That's all for the world of politics. Let's switch to the world of sports, and let's hit the headlines. Heisman Trust pushes decision on whether to give Reggie Bush trophy back onto the NCAA. Wide receiver Gordon files for NFL reinstatement. Urban Meyer and the Jacksonville Jaguars fined for OTA violations. The Dallas Cowboys will be featured on HBO's Hard Knocks for a 3rd time. Kentucky guard Davion Mintz to return to school after withdrawing from the NBA draft. And former Georgia head football coach Mark Richt announces that he has been diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. Our first story in the world of sports: Harlem Globetrotters to Adam Silver, make us an NBA franchise now. For nearly a century, the Harlem Globetrotters have existed alongside the NBA. While both products are viewed differently, there's no doubt that the Globetrotters have had an impact and influence on the league and its players. The Globetrotters want the NBA to acknowledge that connection, telling NBA Commissioner Adam Silver that it is time for the NBA to make the Globetrotters an official NBA franchise. The team wrote a letter to the league Tuesday explaining why Silver should grant the move. The letter credits the Globetrotters with bringing the street game inside. It also notes that when the NBA decided to integrate, the league took players from the Globetrotters instead of making the team an NBA franchise. It also points out the international reach of the Globetrotters. The team has played in 122 countries, helping introduce the world to basketball. The letter then states that the NBA can no longer ignore the Globetrotters before telling Silver that it is time to make the team an official NBA franchise. So if you really believe what you've been saying about social justice, then going back to normal needs to look different. You can't just act like we don't exist anymore. It's time to right the wrongs and rewrite history. It's time for the NBA to honor what the Globetrotters have done for our sport, both here in the U.S. and around the globe. Based on what we've already proven, we can field a team of talent on par with the pros of today, and we want the chance to do that. As a world-renowned and legendary professional basketball team, we petitioned Commissioner Adam Silver, the NBA governors, and the powers that be to grant the original Harlem Globetrotters an NBA franchise. Not now, but right now. The Globetrotters have faced off against an NBA team twice before. The team played the Minnesota Lakers in 1948 and 49 before the NBA was integrated. The Globetrotters won both games against the Lakers, who won the NBA championship in 1949. Asking Silver to make the Globetrotters an NBA franchise is a big request, and likely not one that can be granted immediately. There's no indication the NBA is looking to add another team in the offseason. In the future, however, the Globetrotters make an interesting case for being considered. The team undoubtedly has a history with the NBA, and its influence on the league cannot be denied. If and when the NBA decides it's time to add more teams, Silver will have to consider the impact the Globetrotters have had on the NBA. To me, this isn't just a good idea. This is a home run. And I know we don't talk baseball on this show, but to me, this is a home run. To make the Harlem Globetrotters an actual NBA franchise would be absolutely incredible. It would be so much fun. I mean, very few organizations have had more impact on the game of basketball globally than the Harlem Globetrotters. I mean, when it comes to basketball, what is cooler than the Harlem Globetrotters? If it wasn't for the Globetrotters, we wouldn't see a lot of the playing that we see on playgrounds today. We wouldn't have AAU basketball. We wouldn't have ever had the And One mixtape tour. We wouldn't have had the advances that we have in the NBA when it comes to ball handling, when it comes to Steph Curry and Kyrie Irving and some of the things that we see. The original Harlem Globetrotters are some of the coolest and some of the baddest dudes that ever walked the face of the earth. Curly Neal, Meadowlark Lemon, them dudes could play. Like, yeah, they put on a show and they did all the tricks and they did some stuff that you've never seen before on a basketball court, things that a lot of times were outside of the rules and regulations of a typical basketball game. But even in a structured environment, those guys could absolutely ball. And only twice did NBA teams back in the heyday of the Globetrotters have the guts to even play them in a basketball game. And both times, the Lakers lost to the Globetrotters, even when the Lakers had the NBA championship team. Making the Harlem Globetrotters an official NBA team. Like, if they were an NBA team tomorrow, they might be my favorite squad. Like, I might have to turn in my Warriors card, turn in my Atlanta Hawks card. I might root for those teams a little bit, but I'm going to be a Harlem Globetrotters fan. Like, they already would have the most recognizable uniforms and the most recognizable brand that there is. And what type of gameplay would they bring to an NBA basketball court? That would be an incredible thing to see. And in a lot of ways, it is long overdue, because they haven't gotten proper recognition for what they've brought to the game of basketball in general, let alone the impact that they've had on the NBA. I remember when I was a little kid, I got to go to a Meadowlark Lemon basketball camp one summer, and he had to have been in his 70s at the time. Meadowlark Lemon, rest in peace. But he was such a good dude. Like, he took so much time with the kids. He told us stories about back in the day. He shot hoops with us. I remember at the introduction of the camp, right? A 70-something-year-old Meadowlark Lemon is standing in front of a group of kids. We're all sitting on the floor of the basketball gymnasium in front of him. He's at half court with his back to the basket. We are in front of him on the floor. And he's dribbling the ball and he's spinning it on his finger, and he's just talking to us about fundamentals and about ball handling and about discipline and life choices. And he's talking about how basketball is an easy game, how it's all about preparation, it's all about putting the hours in, and it's an easy game. You can master it. And then he flips the ball, hook shot style, over his head without looking behind him from half court at 73 years old. Nothing but net. Nothing but net. And for years on the side, a side hustle I've had, I sell autographed memorabilia, sports memorabilia, really cool vintage and collectible items. And I have a basketball that was signed when I was a kid by Meadowlark Lemon. And I had a buddy of mine that knew I had it, and when he passed away a couple years ago, was like, "Oh man, you need to sell that Meadowlark Lemon ball. Now's the time. Strike while the iron's hot. I see him going for $1,000. You could get $2,000." I'm not selling that ball. I could go upside down on my mortgage. I'm not selling that ball. I'm not one that cares too much personally about the autograph of athletes. But that one means something to me because I have that memory of this guy who was like a basketball god, like a basketball savant. And here he was in rural Alabama at a basketball camp, talking to each and every kid, spending time with them one-on-one, encouraging them. It was so dope. It was one of the coolest things I've ever gotten to do. And Adam Silver would never hear this podcast, and there's probably about as much chance of them making the Globetrotters an official NBA franchise as there is of Mr. Sharma riding in the front seat. But Adam Silver, like, you should be all on this, man. Like, this would be monumental for the league. It would be a lot of fun. It would increase your brand internationally even more than it already is. I'm all for it. The only negative is that if you were to add the Harlem Globetrotters as an NBA franchise, then the Washington Generals would want to be in the league too, and they always lose. Like, I've seen them play. They always lose. They don't ever win. I think they won one time, but they don't ever win. I'm going to get some emails. Those games were set up that way. I think the Globetrotters should be an NBA franchise tomorrow, and also bring the Supersonics back, because what y'all did to Seattle was not right. And that's a different story for a different day, but it wasn't right either. If you expand NBA, forget overseas, forget other things. Give me a team in Seattle. Give me the Harlem Globetrotters. And it would never happen, but I sure would love to see a team in Montgomery, Alabama, because that is the home and the birth of the civil rights movement. It'd be so cool to have an NBA team there. They could be the Montgomery Freedom Riders, or the Montgomery Equality, or the Montgomery Miracles. I don't know. I'm tossing out some names. That would never happen because, Montgomery, Alabama is not a big enough city, they would say, to sustain a team, even though really I'm sure the whole state would adopt a team. But I've always thought that would be a really cool thing for the NBA to do too, is to put a franchise in the birthplace of the civil rights movement, considering that your biggest stars and your biggest constituency of players and viewers are all African American. I think that would be a great nod to the culture, and something to do that would be pretty creative. Won't happen, but it would be a cool thing. The Harlem Globetrotters thing probably won't happen either, but it certainly should. It certainly should. All right, let's stick with the NBA, and let's talk NBA playoffs. The finals matchup is set. It will be the Phoenix Suns against the Milwaukee Bucks. Yeah, buddy, my Atlanta Hawks. We came so close. We tried so hard. What's the next part of that song? But in the end, Trey's ankle didn't hold up. Yeah, man. Look, wish things had been different. I think that if Atlanta had DeAndre Hunter healthy, if Cam Reddish had not been coming off an injury, he looked so good in Game 6, didn't he? If Trey had been 100%, maybe we would have won, even if the Bucks had Giannis, because the Hawks were at least competitive, if not a little bit better of a team for most of the series. But it just wasn't in the cards. The Hawks have a young team, and the Bucks have a couple of closers that were above and beyond what Atlanta had available in Jrue Holiday and Chris Middleton. Chris Middleton, who is up and down, who's a little bit of a roller coaster, who tends to be inconsistent. Maybe he could get a job in the vice presidential office of Kamala Harris. But that man came to play when it mattered most. And the Atlanta Hawks had absolutely no answer for him. In the mid-range, from three-point, going to the basket, Chris Middleton could not be contained. Jrue Holiday stepped up when the game was on the line. He played his best game in Game 6, and the Bucks have surpassed the Hawks. Look, as a Hawks fan, I'm just proud. I'm proud of that team. I'm proud of what they have accomplished this season. I I told you I like what they did in the offseason. At the outset of the season, I told you they were going to be a 4th or 5th seed in the East. They were. I did not expect them to go to the Eastern Conference Finals, and I did not expect them to be a couple wins away from the NBA Finals. Like, I didn't see that coming. I've tried to tell y'all all year that Trae Young is a top 5 point guard in the league. He certainly proved that during the playoffs. He really showed out before that ankle injury. And the Hawks are a young team. They're going to have opportunities to come back. They just signed Nate McMillan today as their official head coach. They took the interim tag off. That's a great move there. He's done a wonderful job for the Hawks. And they've got to take a look at re-signing John Collins. Do they want to commit the money to him? He's going to be a restricted free agent. I kind of think you have to. A lot of the Hawks fans aren't too big on John Collins because we tend to get out-rebounded. The Bucks really took advantage on the offensive glass, and John Collins is not a back-to-the-basket player. But that's why we have Clint Capella. We need a backup center that can rebound the basketball. The rookie Okongwu is great. He's a good defensive player, but he's like 6'9". We need somebody to pair with him that can really rebound the basketball, that can come in and play minutes to do that when we need it done. John Collins is a great energy player, effort player. He has a good face-up game. He can shoot the three. He's great on the fast break, and he and Trae Young have a lot of chemistry together on those lob passes. To have he and Clint Capella on pick and rolls on each side of the paint that can catch a lob from Trae Young, or Trae can float it, that's what makes him so dangerous in the paint. And so I think that we need to re-sign John Collins, need to find one more piece that can come in off the bench, and draft a player that can play immediately and that can help us. We need a backup point guard and a backup rebounding center or power forward. And I think the Hawks will have a chance to be one of the better teams in the East again next year and build off of what they've accomplished this year. It's a good season for them, and it is a great season for both the Suns and the Bucks. The truth is, a lot of people predicted the Bucks to make the finals coming into the year, and if they hadn't, it would have been a little bit of a disappointment. Now, we don't know if Giannis will play in Game 1. We don't know if he will play at all in the series. But I think that either way, the Suns have the upper hand in the head-to-head matchup. Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton are going to have to play great. PJ Tucker is going to offer some good defense. But I think the Suns just have too much firepower. DeAndre Ayton is really coming to his own in the playoffs. He's become a double-double machine, not just playing good defense and rebounding the basketball, but also scoring in the paint and being able to face up and shoot the mid-range jump shot as well. Devin Booker is a bucket in a couple of sides. And Chris Paul is rounded back into form after missing a couple games to be in the COVID protocol. He played great in the closeout game against the Clippers. And I expect him to have a good final series. I expect him to kind of try to find his way the first game or two and really focus on setting up his teammates and getting them off to a fast start and getting out and running a little bit. And then as the series goes on, I think he'll find his offense and be one of the key contributors there for the Suns. A lot of people are talking about how this is a nightmare matchup for the NBA and for Adam Silver. Phoenix instead of either LA team, and the Bucks instead of the Nets that had 3 stars, and the Bucks maybe without Giannis. But actually, I think it's going to be pretty good. It's going to be a good series. These teams played twice in the regular season. The Suns won both times by only a point. So it's going to be a competitive series, whether Giannis plays or not. And I think it's going to be good that someone different wins. That someone unexpected wins. That's what makes college basketball so much fun. And I think that this year in the playoffs, it kind of had a March Madness type vibe. And I found myself watching all of the playoff games. Usually I watch my team or I watch LeBron. This year I was watching all the playoff games because I was genuinely interested to see who would come out of the West and who would come out of the East, because it was anybody's guess with all the injuries, with the way things shook out. And look, you can talk about putting an asterisk next to whoever wins the NBA championship. That's a bunch of bull. If you win the NBA championship, that means that your team has developed, has stuck together, has played defense, has done all the things necessary against whatever opponent was in front of you. They can't control what opponent is in front of you. You can't control who they have healthy. But you can take care of business. And the Suns and the Bucks have both done that, and they are in the NBA Finals. And I'm going to take the Phoenix Suns in 6 games. I certainly think that the Bucks can win this championship. especially if they get Brook Lopez down in the paint like the Bucks did against the Hawks in those last 2 games. If he will play with his back to the basket and be the 7'2", 300-pound scoring center that he can be, then it'll cause DeAndre Ayton some problems. He can muscle DeAndre Ayton in the paint. And him doing that would really spread the floor for these shooters and open up some driving lanes for the guards. So if the Bucks come in, they play that way, they play aggressively, they shoot better from the outside than they have the rest of the playoffs, they can win, sure. But I'm going to go with the Suns. I'm going to pick the Suns in 6. I think that the Suns and the Bucks split the first 2 games in Phoenix. I think they split the next 2 in Milwaukee. And then I think the Suns take them out in the next 2 games and win in Game 6 in Milwaukee and are the NBA champions for 2021. That's how I see things shaking out. Suns will be your NBA champions. The Bucks have had a great year, a lot to be proud of. But I think Chris Paul is going to get an NBA championship. And he deserves it. He's earned it this year, going to a new squad again, a young team again, and not just lifting their game to the playoffs, but partnering with head coach Monty Williams in a way that Chris Paul has never partnered with the head coach before, being a little big brother in a way that was less annoying and more coachable, and it's paid off in dividends. The Suns players have bought into the leadership and the experience of Chris Paul, and it's just a perfect storm of talent, of youth, of veteran leadership. It was huge for the Suns to add a player like Jay Crowder and other veterans into the mix that have really made a difference for them this year. And the Suns have really just capitalized and improved upon what they started last year in the bubble. So I think the Suns win in 6 games. And if you are a betting person, you might want to take that to the bank, because in total of the 14 playoff series that happened in this year's NBA playoffs already, we here on In the Shed with Wes Anderson correctly predicted 11 of those playoff series correctly for a 79% correct prediction rate. That's not half bad, shawty. 79%, my babies. And I'll have you know that one of the 3 that we missed was that we picked the Hawks in 7 over the Bucks. And I let it be known when I made that pick on Twitter. I said my head is telling me Bucks in 5 or 6. My heart is telling me Atlanta. And I came very close to being correct on that one. My heart was almost correct, but it will go on, Celine Dion. It will. So that's the NBA Finals series. That's what's going on there. Let's move to this, a little bit of college football news. The first bit of news in college football that has been developing and is developing: college football playoff expansion. Apparently, it won't be 4 teams for much longer. The talk is they're looking to add teams to the mix and expand the playoffs from 4 teams to 12 teams total. And almost everybody is looking at this as a good thing, saying that it is more inclusive. It offers the opportunity for more teams to play in the playoffs that will increase recruiting for other schools other than the ones that always make it, aka Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, and Oklahoma. And it'll kind of, over time, level the playing field at least a little bit. I'm not so sure. Look, I'm okay with more teams making the playoffs. I'm okay with doing things to give the little guy a shot. I think one good thing about this is that maybe some of these teams that have been close before and have been knocking on the door, like a Cincinnati or a UCF or a Boise State, maybe those teams will actually get a fair shake now. Because it didn't matter if there was a 2 or a 3 loss SEC or Big 12 or Big 10 school, they were going to get in over an undefeated UCF or an undefeated Boise State or an undefeated Cincinnati every single year, no matter what. And I hate that. Would Cincinnati or Boise or UCF beat Alabama? Probably not. But could they upset a team in the first round of the playoffs? Absolutely. Any given Saturday. It's all about matchups in college football. And if one of those teams has an elite player at quarterback, has a good defense, if the favorite team from the SEC or the Big Ten fumbles the football, throws a couple interceptions, you never know what can happen. And that's one thing that's always bothered me about college football. Even when we've gone to the playoff system, which is supposed to be about fairness, those teams are just never going to get a seat at the table. And it doesn't matter what they do. And it's not fair. Because if Cincinnati, for example, goes undefeated, they have beaten every team on their schedule. They don't have the ability to go out and schedule 8 SEC games a year. That's not within their purview. They cannot do it. So to then punish them and say that their schedule is too weak when they have gone undefeated, that they do not deserve even a chance to play it out on the field and see what happens, has always seemed disingenuous to me. After all, that's what makes March Madness in NCAA basketball so great, is that every year we see a 15 beat a 2, or we see a 12 beat a 5. We see teams make it to the Final Four that we've never heard of before. And I don't think that it's exactly the same in football, because obviously in basketball, you're talking about 5 players on the court and 12 players on the team. If you have 1 or 2 really good basketball players, it makes an immense difference. But we've seen examples of the underdog overcoming immense odds in college football as well. Who could forget when Boise State defeated Oklahoma in the Fiesta Bowl? Who could forget when UCF knocked off Auburn a couple years ago? Every few years it happens where one of these teams is on a hot streak, one of these teams that is playing above their head, that's just having an awesome year. They get to bowl season and they knock off one of these Power 5 teams. Why couldn't it happen in the playoffs? So if those 12 teams will include at least one of these teams, which that's what the proposal is. The proposal is that it will include Power 5 champions, higher ranked teams, and then whatever team is ranked highest that is not from a Power 5 conference, then I'm okay with it. But I do think, if we're being real, I do think that 12 teams is a little bit much. I think that the simple Occam's razor answer is that it's all about the Benjamins. This is a money grab from the greedy folks at the NCAA and the conference commissioners. And I certainly don't want to hear anything about player safety, because you're asking college kids, if you expand to 12 teams, to maybe play as many as 17 games a year while also juggling college classes and final exams. And that seems a little bit crazy to me. I went to a Division III school. We had a football team. Our football team played 10 games, just like a high school football season. That way, if they made the playoffs, they weren't playing too many games. So if you want to shrink the season to 10 games and add all those teams, okay. But otherwise, don't talk to me about player safety. Don't talk to me about student athletes. And don't pretend that it's not about money, because it is. I've said for years that if you want to expand the playoffs, the easiest way to do it would be to do this. You stick with 4 teams, but you add a provision that any team that is undefeated, that finishes the season undefeated, I don't care if it's Oklahoma State, Ohio State, Cincinnati, Georgia Tech, Hawaii, whoever, any team that finishes the season undefeated, that wins every game on the schedule, gets a chance to be in the playoffs also. Think about how fun this would be. You would have 4 teams, so let's say Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, and Oklahoma make the playoffs. But then you have Cincinnati, Miami, Ohio also go undefeated. Then they get automatic bids also. I don't care if they rank 15th and 25th. If you go undefeated and you're a Division I football team, you deserve a shot in the playoffs. You deserve to be in the field. So some years you might have 6 teams and have to extend a bye. Some years you might have as many as 8 teams. Sometimes it wouldn't affect things at all and you still have the same 4. But man, it'd be fun and it'd be unpredictable. And it would allow the little guy to have a seat at the table and at least have a chance, have something to play for. It'd be pretty fun. I think that's a better model. I think that's the way to go. I don't think it will happen because it's all about money. The other big story in the world of college football is the NIL, that's name, image, and likeness ruling that has come down from the Supreme Court and kind of forced the NCAA's hand, where college athletes are now allowed to profit on their name, image, and likeness. Imagine that. College athletes can now make money off of their own name, their own image, and their own likeness. Way to step into 2021, NCAA. They try to pretend like they are a forward-thinking group. They had their hands tied, didn't have a choice. So we've already seen a couple of cool stories come out from this. There's a pair of women's basketball players who are twins at Fresno State. They have already struck it big. They have a huge Instagram following. I say struck it big, at least for a college student. They've signed some deals. Bo Nix, the quarterback from Auburn, has signed a deal with Milo's Sweet Tea. And Alabama fans are not taking it too kindly. There's videos all over the internet of Alabama fans pouring out their Milo's tea in the sink and saying Roll Tide. Y'all crazy. Alabama fans like, we going to drink Blue Diamond and we going to pretend it's good. That's how bad we hate Auburn. We going to drink Blue Diamond tea. We going to pretend that it tastes good. It don't taste good. It's not Milo's, let's be honest. I mean, here on In the Shed with Wes, we drink a different tea. Let me break some game down for you. It's a tea out there better than Milo's tea. Did you know that? Here on In the Shed with Wes, we drink Golden Peak tea. In the Shed with Wes is brought to you by Golden Peak Tea, the very best tea that is out there. You can find in grocery stores wherever you buy your tea. Golden Peak Tea, the best tea for family events. That's what we drink around here, shawty. Golden Peak Tea. It tastes like the tea your mama made. And this is free right here. So Golden Peak Tea, get at me. Let me know. It's the best tea in the land. You can sponsor. You can be our first sponsor on In the Shed with Wes. We got about 60 folk listening to us right now. We growing every day. We getting big in India. My boy Ramesh holding it down in India. Golden Peak Tea. No, but it's about time that these athletes have some way to make some kind of money to eat, to live on, to put gas in their car. I know that they get a little bit of a living stipend, but it's not much. And any other college student has the ability to work a job. The truth is, if you are a college athlete, you just don't have time. You just don't have time. I was a college athlete at a Division III school on the basketball team, at least for a semester and a half or so. And it was my knee. My knee gave out, you guys. I wasn't on scholarship and my knee gave out. The jumper was good. The jumper is still good. I still take you to school. But I didn't have time to work a job at a Division III school when I was not on scholarship. I had workouts 3 times a week. I had stuff in the morning before class, stuff after class. I had study hall twice a week at night. I had to get 1,000 jump shots up every week in the gym on my own, in my own time. There's just not time. And to keep someone from having the ability to make money on their own name is just absurd to begin with. So this is about time that college students are actually allowed to do this. I'm glad. It is a good thing, and we endorse it wholly. But, I do have some concerns. It's a good thing overall. I'm glad that college kids are able to make money. But my concerns are bad contracts. And this is a lesson that anyone in business at any level in life at some point has to learn. And I know these kids are going to learn these lessons, but they're going to have to learn them the hard way. They're going to sign some bad contracts. I'm glad that these kids can make some money, but this is another avenue for these athletes to be taken advantage of too. And people are ready to take advantage of them. I know some schools will do more for these athletes and will offer more help and assistance to them. And I hope that it goes well for them, but there's going to be some bad contracts signed. That's certainly a concern. Another concern I have is the uneven playing field that will be created, both between schools, a school like Alabama with a huge national following, and a school across the state like Troy that may not have the same opportunity for their athletes, but also even just on the same team, the uneven playing field that will be created. Because your offensive lineman, your starting left guard, probably is not going to get the same amount of deals or amount of money as your starting quarterback or your starting running back. And it has the possibility to create some animosity and some hurt feelings and some unhealthy tension and competition between players on the same team. And that's certainly something that coaches are going to have to wade through, some murky water they're going to have to step into and figure out. Something they've never had to do before. They're going to have to start thinking about things like that and put a game plan together. And then there's the issue of recruiting. Because now, if I am a car dealer or a restaurant owner, it's now above board for me to call up the quarterback at my favorite college and say, hey, come make an appearance and I will pay you $5,000. I can do that. It's completely above board. So how in the world is that going to be handled when it comes to recruiting? What's going to stop a booster from saying, if you come to my school, I'll have you come down, make one appearance here, and I'll give you $25,000. I'll give you $15,000. And right now, if you are on campus, that is allowed, and I am fine with that. I want these kids to be able to make some money. They make the school millions of dollars. They should be allowed to make something too. I get it. But how are you actually going to keep recruiting rules in place, and how are you going to possibly enforce them? I don't know where that line is going to be drawn. I haven't heard a coherent explanation. The only thing I've heard is, well, those two things are different. And I'm like, yeah, they are, but how? How? Because if you know that if you go to USC, that you can make X amount of money, and that you're going to get paid for virtually nothing just for making an appearance or for doing this or for signing some autographs at the local restaurant, and you know that the other school is recruiting, you just can't offer near the same thing, why would you go to another school? So there's the possibility there that these schools that already have elite programs, that it will just actually place more distance between them and these other schools. That football programs that already have the advantage when it comes to recruiting and facilities and the like, that advantage will just be increased tenfold. And I think that overall that would be a harmful thing to college football. So overall with NIL, I'm excited about it. I'm happy for the players. I just have some concerns: bad contracts, uneven playing fields, and recruiting. I would like to hear those things explained, expounded upon. I'm confident that there can be solutions found, but it's probably going to be a few years. I think 5 years from now, we've got a lot of these kinks ironed out and things figured out. I don't think it will necessarily affect the sport on the field that we see right away, but these things are concerns, and I would just like to see those things answered. I'm happy for these college athletes. I think that this is at least a start, and it is one that is well deserved. That's all for the world of sports. Let's switch to this, the world of the paranormal. Our first story takes us to the UK. Werewolf hunter reveals UK's paranormal triangle where terrifying beasts gather. There are more reports of paranormal events in the UK than almost any area of comparable size on Earth, and East Yorkshire has a strong claim to being the spookiest area in Britain. Specifically, the area of East Yorkshire known as the Wold-Newton Triangle, named after the village which finds itself at the center of this mystical area. The area is particularly notorious for werewolf sightings. One misty night in the 1960s, a driver was making his way along a remote Wolds road. As his vehicle trundled along, he glimpsed a pair of red eyes in the murk. Seconds later, a wolf-like creature tried to smash its way through his windshield. Author, paranormal researcher, and sometime werewolf hunter Charles Christian told the Whole Daily Mail in 2015 that this account provides a glimpse of the weird happenings within the Wold-Newton Triangle. That part of the country was once infested with wolves, said Mr. Christian, whose book, A Travel Guide to Yorkshire's Weird Wolds, explores some of the area's horrifying tales. Up until the 18th century, there was still a wolf bounty for anyone killing them. It was known for the wolves to dig up corpses from graveyards. From that sprung the idea that they are supernatural beings who took the form of werewolves. There's the legend of the werewolf called Old Stinker, he added. Yo, I'm all into this story. I'm like, oh, shoot, they driving down the road. There's some fog. It's late at night. They see some red glowing eyes. It's creepy. It's paranormal. Old Stinker. If that don't just ruin the ambiance. Like, I'm spooked out. I'm in my shed. I'm all alone. I'm kind of digging it. I don't know where the cockroach went. And then the werewolf's name is Old Stinker. And that don't sound like a werewolf or any creature that I should be afraid of. It sounds like a nickname for one of the dudes at the nursing home. Oh, here comes Old Stinker. There's the legend of a werewolf called Old Stinker, he added, a great hairy beast with red eyes, who was so called because he had bad breath. Old Stinker hit the news as recently as 2016 after reports of a sighting of the monster at Barnstorm Drain in Hull, which is well outside the triangle, but shows that fear still remains. A woman claimed the beast had a German Shepherd in its mouth and was 8 feet tall. Now that is spooky. Maybe I gave up on Old Stinker too quickly. When I was a child, I remember someone saying that they would not drive along the road from Flixton to Bridgington after dark because of those fears, Mr. Christian said. When people would glimpse what they thought was the rear lights of a car in front, it would instead reveal itself to be the red eyes of a wolf. The area's problem was recognized in AD 937 when King Athelstan granted the building of a hostel to provide travelers with shelter from these attacks. Anyone on the road through would have been particularly wary of Wolfmonth, the Saxon name for January, when the creatures, starved of the easy pickings of livestock, would turn to human prey. You were more likely to be eaten then than at any other time of the year, Charles said. The hostel was built near Saxton Hill, called Spittal Hoe in North Yorkshire. Its purpose was to protect travelers from wolf attacks. The wolves around Spittal Hoe were reportedly so intelligent that people started to believe they were somehow humans that had the power to transform into wolves during the night. The Wold Newton Triangle is also known for sightings of zombies, fairies, dragons, and a phantom river called the Waters of Woe. What could be behind this concentration of the uncanny? Some point to the meteor strike in 1795. The space rock, one of the largest meteorites in history to have hit the UK, impacted close to the junction of 5 ley lines, those supposedly mystical veins running through the Earth that some believe carry magical or even alien energy. Can any of these reports be taken seriously? It is Yorkshire, after all. Yeah, so first of all, I love that this expert that we are quoting in the article is also identified as a part-time werewolf hunter. I will be updating my resume shortly. Find me on LinkedIn at host of In the Shed and also part-time werewolf hunter. I think that is an interesting way to identify. It's 2021. You want to identify as a part-time werewolf hunter? Okay. Put it on your Twitter profile. Let's go. Put it in the bio. Part-time werewolf hunter. So this is kind of a creepy story. This place where there used to actually be wolf attacks back in the day for years and years and years. And it happened so often. And these wolves were apparently so violent and targeted so many people that there became this mythology around that particular area of the UK. And people started to say, hey, these wolves are so intelligent that maybe there's something paranormal happening. And maybe they're actually people that can turn into wolves at night. I do think that the story, especially the person that claimed to see something 8 feet tall with a German Shepherd in its mouth, like that is spooky. And if you're riding on a country road at night and it's foggy, being someone that lives in Alabama, I can tell you that you see some weird things and that you do have moments where you begin to wonder. But I do love especially in this article, the explanation of why. Well, we see werewolves and zombies and fairies and goblins and all kinds of crazy stuff in this area. What is happening? Well, in 1795, a meteorite landed somewhere close to here. And that's why even today we see werewolves. Talk about a reach, right? 350 years ago, there was a big rock that fell from the sky. And that is why that we think there are werewolves today. Maybe we'll do a follow-up and we'll do a show on werewolves soon. But I thought that was a pretty fun story. Part-time werewolf hunter, meteorite, zombies, goblins, werewolves. Definitely some creepy stuff, though, on country roads at night in the fog. Have you ever been on a country road at night in the fog? Have you ever seen anything spooky there? Email the show at intheshedwithwes@gmail.com and let us know what your experiences are. I would love to share that with our audience. From the UK, we go to Pennsylvania for our next story. Police break up exorcism inside Home Depot store. Yes, you heard me correctly. Police break up exorcism inside Home Depot store. Police in Pennsylvania's Lackawanna County broke up an exorcism in the lumber aisle of a home improvement store on Monday. Details are scarce on just what was going on inside the Home Depot on Commerce Drive in Dixon City Monday afternoon, but police were called around 3:26 p.m. to escort several people out of the store for bad behavior. According to reports, the exorcism was held for the trees that had been turned into lumber. Oh, man. Look, I know lumber prices are high and life has been hard and we've experienced a lot of trauma and isolation thanks to COVID, but you can't be up here in Home Depot exercising some trees. Just get a hobby. Play some video games. Go for a walk outside. Take some bread. It can even be old bread down to the lake yard and feed the ducks. But you can't be exercising no lumber in Home Depot. The police blotter item posted on the Dixon City Police Facebook page gave few clues as to what happened, simply saying 3:26 p.m. Commerce Boulevard, Home Depot for disorderly people having an exorcism in the lumber aisle for the dead trees. They were escorted out of the building. Close to 200 comments on the post begged for more details. I, too, add my name to that chorus. Look, Lackawanna County, Pennsylvania, I am begging for more details. Who were these people? How many of them were there? What were they doing to exorcise these trees? Why did they think these trees needed to be exorcised just because they were turned into... let me know what was going on. This story is interesting. I need to know. America needs to know. There's no indication the incident had anything to do with the price of lumber. Oh, see, I'm ahead of the game today, my babies. I'm ahead of the game. Wes Anderson got your bag. I'm ready. Let's go. According to reports, no charges have been filed at this time. So the story at least has a happy ending, as nobody is going to jail for doing something that is absolutely silly and doesn't harm anyone. And at least we can be happy about that. Maybe we will learn some more details. And if we do, I will certainly be sure to share them with you, because we got some folks in Home Depot out here exercising some lumber. Lowe's, it's your move. Your move, Lowe's. What you got? The ball is in your court, so to speak. I mean, it's tools. The tools are in your shed, Lowe's. Your move. From Pennsylvania, we go to the X-Files for our next story. Why X-Files creator is skeptical of new U.S. government UFO report. Chris Carter, the creator of the X-Files, is skeptical of the United States government's new report on UFOs. Carter not only created the long-running sci-fi series on Fox, but he also executively produced the series and served as its head writer for 9 seasons from 1993 to 2002. He later returned for 2 revival seasons in 2016 and 2018. Other than the show's 11-season run, The X-Files has gotten 2 feature films, one subtitled Fight the Future, which is in continuity with the series, and the standalone film I Want to Believe, both of which were written by Carter. The X-Files follows 2 FBI special agents, Fox Mulder, played by David Duchovny, and Dana Scully, played by Gillian Anderson, who investigate unsolved, enigmatic cases generally involving paranormal phenomena. Do-do-do-do-do-do. Phenomena. Do-do-do-do. Phenomena. Do-do-do-do-do. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Throughout the series, Mulder is generally more inclined to believe in the paranormal and the existence of aliens, while Scully plays the role of a skeptic, as she is commonly assigned to analyze his work with her finely honed scientific sense. Early on in the series, however, Mulder and Scully discover they are entangled in a much broader conspiracy involving the government's attempt to suppress evidence of extraterrestrial life. Now, in a New York Times op-ed, the creator of the X-Files, Chris Carter, says that he wants to believe in aliens, but has never seen any proof himself. The recent UFO controversy began after videos of Navy aircraft tracking unidentified aerial phenomena — I already did the song, I'm not going to do it again, shawty — were released to the public, and the U.S. government commissioned a study on the topic. While Congress is set to release the findings on Friday — this is an old article, it was already released and we're about to talk about it — reports say the study is inconclusive, but Carter is skeptical that the government can provide any concrete answers on this subject at all. The plot of the X-Files was built on a conspiracy theory. The government is lying to you about the existence of UFOs and extraterrestrials. Do I believe the government lies to us? Absolutely. I'm a child of Watergate. Do I believe in conspiracies? Certainly. I believe, for example, that someone is targeting CIA agents and White House officials with microwave radiation, the so-called Havana syndrome, and your government denied it. Will the new report or any government report give us clear answers? I'm as skeptical now as I've ever been. In his piece, Carter goes on to point out the parallels between this story and fictional ones like his own, saying, "This is X-Files territory if there ever was any," and also makes a reference to Netflix's Stranger Things. For better or worse, the public's view and understanding of aliens and UFOs is undeniably shaped by movies and television. Starting in 1951, the day the Earth stood still famously mined Cold War paranoia for a sci-fi story about an alien who arrives on Earth to deliver an important message to the human race. In his op-ed, Carter explains how the X-Files does the exact same thing. Not only does the show depict paranormal phenomena, but also a government agenda aimed at keeping the existence of extraterrestrial life a secret. This very much capitalized on government distrust sowed by Watergate. The effect that Hollywood has had on the collective consciousness regarding UFOs is debatable, but X-Files creator Chris Carter will be appearing on Discovery's UFOs Declassified to try to make sense of the new government report. So we've talked about this UFO report, or as the government refers to it, UAP, Unidentified Aerial Phenomena. We've talked about it on the show about how it was tied into the corona relief package, and that the government had 6 months to basically let us know in a declassified report without redaction what they know about UFOs. And we were simultaneously excited about it here on In the Shed, but also very skeptical that anything of value or worth would be stated in the report. And now that it has come out and that we have read it and reviewed it and watched the program about it on the Discovery Channel, as well as one that TMZ of all people put together, I can safely say that our fears turned out to be correct. Now, on the one hand, this report in and of itself is almost a miracle, because our government does not share things that they do not have to share, and even when they do not do it in a way that is clear and transparent. So just the fact that there is a report declassified that was released on this topic at all, and the fact that they flat out said, look, we took a look at 144 different instances that military pilots and ships and aircraft have seen these UAPs and UFOs. We took a look at 144 of those such situations, and we could only explain 2 of them. So they had, basically the report had 5 categories that it placed these UFO reports into: our military, foreign military, weather, natural phenomenon related to, I guess, space, such as if it had been a star or an asteroid or something of that nature. And then the last category was other. And almost every single one of these incidents got placed into the other file. And on the one hand, the report was a bit of a clunker, because basically they said there's a lot of these incidents, we can't make sense of almost any of them, and we don't know what it is. So on the one hand, it was a bit of a clunker because there was no indication or explanation or clarification. I sound like Dr. Seuss just then. But on the other hand, we actually have the U.S. government saying in this report that these sightings are real, that they're not just blips on a radar, that they believe them to be actual physical things. And that is news. And I don't know why more people don't care about this, because there are all these incidents of these crafts that can maneuver in ways that far outpace any technology that we know on this earth. And they're showing up unabashed in our airspace, right next to our fighter jets, right above our aircraft carriers, in restricted airspace, and we can't do anything about it. We don't know what they are. We don't know where they come from. We don't know what's going on. And some people are saying, well, there's always the chance that the government is just intentionally misleading us, that this is their technology all along. Okay, maybe. But some of the stuff on video, if we have technology like that, we are doing a darn good job of never using it or displaying it publicly otherwise. Because Air Force pilots are testifying that the speed at which these ships are moving and the direction, the way they change direction, and even the fact that some of them have gone from air into the water, into the ocean, and back out, they're not things that we have the ability to do at this time. And they're not things that we think China or Russia or any other military in the world has the capability to do either. So I don't know why more people don't care that this is actually a real thing. Like, this isn't just some made up thing. There's something that is happening in the sky. And our military is seeing it, and our government has said that these are actual physical things. It's not just a projection. It's not just a computer malfunction or a blip on the radar, Neil deGrasse Tyson. It is an actual real thing that is happening, and so many people are just going to watch Keeping Up with the Kardashians and eat their Cooler Ranch Doritos and not care. And I don't get it, because it's a big deal. But aside from that, aside from admitting that this is a real thing and that they don't know what it is, the report offered nothing else of value. It did not. It was very careful not to mention the word alien or extraterrestrial. It just said we don't know where these things come from. That's all it said. Don't know if they're manned or unmanned. Don't know where they come from. Don't know what they want. But they're there, and they're physical, and they're real. And so it does beg the question, if these are actual physical crafts of some sort, and they're not made by our military, and they're not made by another military, and they exhibit technology that we don't yet understand, that we don't have the ability to replicate. No propulsion, speeds that don't make sense, change in direction in a way, and altitude in a way that we just can't do. If they can do all of those things, where are they coming from? I mean, as a rational, not as a conspiracy theorist, not as a tinfoil hat person, not as even someone that is super into aliens and space and all of these things before, but just as a regular, everyday, average American citizen, if you are here hearing your government say this is a real thing, it's a physical thing, it does stuff that we can't do or replicate or understand, it's not our military, it's not a foreign military, what options are left? Because no matter what options you consider after that, they are things that we have not really begun to grapple with as a society. I think every time in my life that I've ever polled a room of people about whether or not they believe in the possibility, even the possibility of life outside of Earth, most everyday, average, regular people say no, and they kind of laugh you off. We might have to start considering it. And what if these crafts aren't extraterrestrial and they're not from our military? What would that mean? I mean, you start to have to consider options that you would have thought were impossible before, or crazy or harebrained or conspiratorial before. If they're not from our government, they're not from another government, they are physical, they have other technology that we don't have, hundreds of years past what we're capable of today. What if they're not extraterrestrial? On the TMZ production, which I thought was actually better than the Discovery Channel one, I thought TMZ did a pretty good job. They packed it into like an hour. They had Air Force and Defense Department folks on there, pilots, UFO researchers, and the like. And a couple of the suggestions that one of those guys had, because Harvey from TMZ, he asked that same question. He said, well, if these aren't our military, they're not foreign military, but they are physical crafts, they've got to be aliens, right? And the guy that he was interviewing said, maybe. And Harvey said, well, I mean, what other option could there possibly be? And Homeboy said, maybe they've been here all along. Maybe they've been here longer than we have. Yo, mind blown. Think about that for a few minutes. Think about the possibility, and I know this sounds crazy, but think about the possibility that there could be some type of civilization that has existed all around us somehow, that has already been here somehow, that is more advanced than us somehow, that we've never even been aware of. And then the man says, or they could be from the ocean. And I'm like, under the sea, which in Spanish is bajo el mar, bajo el mar. Yeah, they could be from the ocean. So either the government is lying to us in a major way, which is quite possible, or a foreign military is 100 years more advanced than we are, which I guess could be possible, or aliens are real, or there's some time travelers, or there's some far advanced civilization here at the same time of us that we are somehow not aware of, whether they're in a different dimension or from the ocean. And it's 2021 and life is getting crazy, y'all. But most people don't care. And that, to me, is the most amazing part of this whole thing. For our last story in the world of the paranormal, we go to the recesses of the human mind. What is the Mandela Effect? When masses of people believe an event occurred when it didn't. The Mandela Effect refers to a situation in which a large mass of people believe that an event occurred when it actually did not. Looking at the origin of the Mandela Effect, some famous examples, as well as some potential explanations for this strange confluence of perceptions, can help shed some light on this unique phenomenon. The term Mandela Effect began when it was first coined in 2009 by Fiona Broome when she published a website detailing her observance of the phenomenon. Broome was at a conference talking with other people about how she remembered the tragedy of former South African President Nelson Mandela's death in a South African prison in the 1980s. However, Nelson Mandela did not die in the 1980s in a prison. He passed away in 2013. As Broome began to talk to the other people about her memories, she learned that she was not alone. Others remembered seeing news coverage of his death as well as a speech by his widow. Broome was shocked that such a large mass of people could remember the same identical event in such detail when it never happened. Encouraged by her book publisher, she began a website to discuss what she called the Mandela Effect and other incidents like it. So we're going to go through some of those incidents that are mentioned here in this article. Pretty interesting phenomenon, the Mandela Effect. And I remember when I first heard about it, and we'll get to that in a minute, I was like, this can't be a thing. Like, this can't be true. I know that Nelson Mandela did not die in prison. I know that. I know history. I like history. Surely, a few misinformed people that this lady knew, like, this is not a thing. And so I did my own, on a very small scale, experiment. I was in college at the time, and so I went to some of my friends' dorm rooms, and I just simply asked 20 people, one-on-one, not with others around, I'm doing an experiment. Can you tell me how Nelson Mandela died? And would you believe, out of the 20 people I polled, 18 of them said Nelson Mandela died in prison. It floored me. I was like, hey, either these people all had really bad history teachers or there is something to this. The story of Nelson Mandela is not the only example of this type of false group memory. As the concept of the Mandela Effect grew along with Broome's website, other group false memories began to emerge. So let's go through some of these, and listeners, my tools, my babies, let's see if you remember any of these things incorrectly and are in fact victim of the Mandela Effect. Henry VIII eating a turkey leg. People had a memory of a painting of Henry VIII eating a turkey leg, though no such painting has ever existed. There have, however, been similar cartoons created. I've never heard of Henry VIII eating a turkey leg, so this one is a big whiff for me. I'm not familiar with that one. Let's move on to the next one. Luke, I am your father. If you saw Star Wars Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back, you probably remember Darth Vader uttering the famous line, Luke, I am your father. You might be surprised to learn then that this line was actually, No, I am your father. Most people have memories of the line being the former rather than the latter. The line was actually, No, I am your father.
No, I am your father.
It just don't sound as good. No, I mean, I'm not a Star Wars buff. I've actually never seen Star Wars. Don't hate me. Don't at me. But I always thought it was Luke, I am your father. That's the only thing I've ever heard before. Did you know that one, my tools? It's No, I am your father. Do you have a memory of hearing Luke, I am your father? Do you need to go look it up on the YouTube and type it in on the YouTube machine there? Hit that Google machine. Mirror, mirror on the wall. Now, I know that was in Snow White. Don't trip. If you watch Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, you probably remember the line, Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all. Yes, I do remember that. You may be shocked to learn then that the line actually began with the phrase magic mirror on the wall. Magic mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them? I don't remember. No, I don't remember that at all. I could have sworn it was mirror, mirror. I grew up as a child saying, well, I don't know, I said it that often really, but grew up hearing as a child, mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all? Not magic mirror on the wall. I guess the mirror would be magic, but I thought the magic was implied. I mean, why else would we be talking to a mirror? Yeah, that one I definitely have the wrong memory of. For real, I do. Let's keep going. Oscar Mayer. There is some controversy over the spelling of the famous brand of hot dogs, Oscar Mayer Wiener. How do you spell it? It used to be a song. How do you spell Oscar Mayer? Some people claim to remember the brand being spelled M-E-Y-E-R instead of M-A-Y-E-R, which is the correct spelling. You gotta be kidding me. You gotta be kidding me. I thought it was M-E-Y-E-R. Oscar Mayer Wiener. Mayer is M-A-Y-E-R, like John Mayer, Oscar Mayer, but it's Mayer. I'm tripping. This is... Look, I knew Nelson Mandela. I knew that one, but Star Wars, I had that wrong. Mirror, mirror on the wall, I had wrong. Oscar Mayer, I had wrong. What has happened to my childhood? Memory is apparently not very reliable, is what I'm learning. The Mandela Effect, I'm all in on this one. A lot of times when they show these conspiracies and this phenomena, I'm like, this isn't real, or I'm not sure about this, or I'm kind of skeptical. I'm all in. I'm all the way in. I don't know half. I'm not unintelligent. My memory is wrong about all of these things. Okay, let's keep going. There's some more. Location of New Zealand. Where is New Zealand in relation to Australia? Now, I promise you, I ain't know that no matter what. Like, this isn't even Mandela Effect. Like, that's geography, and I do not know it. If you look at a map, you will see that it is southeast to the country. However, there's a community of people who claim to remember that New Zealand was northeast instead of southeast. They just swapped up New Zealand on you. Yeah, no, that one I don't have any knowledge or recollection. I don't think I've ever known where New Zealand is. So no worries for me there, which actually is a little bit relieving and makes me feel a little bit better because those other three kind of had me shook, like had me worried. Moving on. Berenstain Bears. The famous children's book series, The Berenstain Bears, is not immune to the Mandela Effect. Many people report remembering the name being the Berenstain Bears, spelled with an E instead of an A. This is similar to the Oscar Mayer issue and hints at perhaps an underlying cognitive reason for the Mandela Effect instead of parallel realities, as some people believe. The Berenstain? Do you mean to tell me that the beloved children's books that I read as a child, young Wes Anderson was reading the Berenstain Bears? I watched the Berenstain Bears cartoons. I remember calling them the Bernstein Bears and people correcting me and saying Berenstain. I called them the Bernstein Bears and people said, no, it's Berenstain. It was an EI. It was the stain? That doesn't even sound right. Why would the bears be stained? The Berenstain Bears. Who? Berenstain. Right? Can y'all please email the show at intheshed@gmail.com and tell me that I'm not crazy? Do you remember? This one has to be wrong. The Berenstain Bears, not Berenstain. What have you done, Nelson Mandela? What have you done? All right, there's a couple more. I don't know if I want to keep going, but I guess I will. One more. Shazam. Okay, Shazam. That's a movie. I saw it as a kid. What are they saying about Shazam? Let's see. One of the most well-known examples of the Mandela Effect is the collective memory of a movie called Shazam that starred the actor and comedian Sinbad in the 1990s. In fact, no such movie exists. Although there was a children's movie called Kazam, yeah, that starred Shaquille O'Neal, and some other coincidences that could help to explain how this movie became created or remembered in many people's minds. There was no movie called Shazam. I just told you that I have seen the movie. I remember my mama used to rent movies for us my mama on Friday night would go to the movie gallery in the Pizza Hut, and we would tell her what movie to get for us, and she would bring home a VHS tape, and we would watch the movie, and we would eat pizza, and it would be a glorious night. And I remember on more than one occasion renting a movie called Shazam that apparently, according to this article, never existed. I have not been this stressed out on the show in a while. I'm not gonna lie. I may not sleep. I'm about to go down the rabbit hole when I get up out the shed. I'm going to get on that Google machine. I'm going to be quizzing my wife and sending text messages to my family asking what they remember. Is this real? I could have swore I seen Shazam. So why would this effect even happen? Yeah, let's explore. One theory about the basis for the Mandela Effect originates from quantum physics and relates to the idea that rather than one timeline of events, it is possible that alternate realities or universes are taking place and mixing with our timeline. Lord have mercy. In theory, this would result in groups of people having the same memories because the timeline has been altered as we shift between these different realities. And maybe that explains the UFOs too. You aren't alone if you think this sounds a little unrealistic. Unfortunately, the idea of alternate realities is unfalsifiable, meaning that there is no way to truly disprove that these other universes don't exist. I also don't think it's a way to prove that Shazam did not exist, because I'm almost positive I saw that movie. This is why such a far-fetched theory continues to gain traction among the Mandela Effect communities. We got communities I might have to join. I might have to join after this article because I'm shook. You can't prove it's not real, so you can't totally discount the possibility of it either. For many people, the excitement of a bit of mystery to everyday life also likely comes into play. A more likely explanation for the Mandela Effect involves false memories. Before we consider what is meant by false memories, let's look at an example of the Mandela Effect, as it will help us to understand how memory can be faulty and may lead to the phenomenon that we are describing. Who was Alexander Hamilton? Most Americans learned in school that he was a founding father of the United States of America, but that he was not a president. However, when asked about the presidents of the United States, many people mistakenly believed that Hamilton was a president. Now, I know that one now. That's just simple history. I know that he was not one of the U.S. presidents. I used to could name them all. But why does this happen? If we consider a simple neuroscience explanation, the memory for Alexander Hamilton is encoded in an area of the brain where the memories for the presidents of the United States are stored. The means by which memory traces are stored is called the engram, and the framework in which similar memories are associated with each other is called the schema. That was also my nickname in college, the schema. So when people try to recall Hamilton, this sets off the neurons in close connection to each other, bringing with it the memory of the presidents. Though this is an oversimplified explanation, it illustrates the general process. When memories are recalled rather than remembered perfectly, they're influenced to the point that they can eventually become incorrect. In this way, memory is unreliable and not infallible. And yet we got people serving life or getting the death penalty because folks remembered something happening a certain way. I'm so terrified now. This just throws everything into question. I mean, how can I have an intelligent conversation about anything for the rest of my life that happened in the past? Did it even happen? What is real? What is real, my tools? This leads to the likelihood that problems with memory and not alternate universes are the explanation for the Mandela Effect. In fact, there are a number of subtopics related to memory that may play a role in this phenomenon. Here are just a few of the possibilities to consider. Confabulation. Confabulation involves your brain filling in gaps that are missing in your memories to make more sense of them. This isn't lying, but rather remembering details that never happened. Confabulation tends to increase with age. Dang. Post-event information. Information that you learn after an event can change your memory of an event. This includes event subtle information and helps to explain why eyewitness testimony can be unreliable. Again, dang. Priming. Priming describes the factors leading up to an event that affects our perception of it. Also called suggestibility and presupposition, priming is the difference between asking how short a person is versus how tall a person is. Saying, "Did you see the black car?" instead of "a black car" makes a subtle suggestion that influences response and memory. In essence, memories are vulnerable bits of information stored in the brain that can be changed over time. While we assume that our memories are accurate, this is not necessarily the case. Yeah, but why would so many of our memories be faulty about the same thing? Like all about seeing this movie that never existed. Like, did one person have that false memory and mention it, and somebody else was like, "Yeah, I think so," and then someone else said, "Yeah, I saw that," and then it just grew? But about like so many different topics, like this is crazy. I still think I saw Shazam. The role of the internet in influencing the memories of the masses should not be underestimated. It's probably no coincidence that consideration of the Mandela Effect has grown in this digital age. The internet is a powerful way to spread information, and with this spreading of information comes the potential for misconceptions and falsehoods to gain traction. People then begin to create communities based around these falsehoods, and what was once in the imagination starts to seem factual. In fact, in a large study of over 100,000 news stories discussed across Twitter, conducted over a period of 10 years, showed that hoaxes and rumors won out over truth every single time by about 70%. Yo, that's crazy. This wasn't the result of manipulation or bots either. Real verified accounts of actual people were responsible for spreading false information. This notion of the speed with which false information spreads on the internet could help to explain the Mandela Effect. As each person chimes in with their own experience or memory of an event, those false memories could affect the memories of other people, thus coloring them to remember the events in the same way. For example, Sinbad did star in other movies in the 1990s and appeared in a movie poster for the film House Guest coming out of a mailbox. This looks similar to a genie, which could explain the association with the movie Shazam. Sinbad also dressed up like a genie for an event that he hosted in the 1990s. When one person mentioned this movie Shazam, likely on the internet, it altered the memories of other people who tried to recall the movies that Sinbad made from the 1990s. Online communities spread the misinformation until it appeared to be factual. The explanation is supported by evidence that remembering something repeatedly builds your confidence in the memory, even if it grows more inaccurate over time. As more and more people provided incorrect details, these become incorporated into other people's memories as facts and strengthen their conviction that they were, in fact, correct. I'm not sleeping tonight. I still think I saw Shazam. And the Berenstain Bears is the one that bothers me the most. Because I just remember having this conversation at school. I had to do accelerated reader program, and I had Berenstain Bears. I would always say the Bernstein Bears, and then people would say it's not Bernstein, it's Berenstein or Berenstein. No one ever corrected me and said Berenstain. I regret talking about the Mandela Effect. I kind of had an idea of what it was. I remember learning about people misremembering what happened to Nelson Mandela, but I didn't know that it would have that many examples that hit home for me personally. Hey. And the fact that memory is so malleable and is so wrong, I would rather it be alternate universes, alternate timelines. Like, let's just go with that one. Did I say timelines, time lemons, timelimes? Let's just go with alternate timelines, because this whole memory thing is incredibly spooky. And that is the Mandela Effect. Whew. Are you okay, my tools? Episode 18, we get into it. Let me know which one of those you remember correctly, which ones you remember differently like I do. Email the show at intheshedwithwes@gmail.com. I would love to hear from you about this. That's all for this week. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. I can't either. It's back in the house and out of the shed for me. Thanks again for listening to episode 18. Make sure to subscribe, like, share, and review. It really does help. If you have any paranormal experiences, opinions about sports, or politics that you'd like to share, you can email the show at intheshedwithwes@gmail.com. Again, that's intheshedwithwes@gmail.com. I might even read it on air. Look for us on Spotify, Stitcher, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at InTheShed4. Tune in again next week when we will hit the headlines, talk the return of everyone's favorite EA Sports video game, and take a look at the bizarre story of carnival babies. This has been In the Shed with Wes Anderson, the best news show in the land covering politics, sports, and the paranormal. Have an adventurous and fulfilling week. I'll catch you tools later. Peace out, Boy Scout. Meemaw, we made it!